Okay, looks like we're ready, so we might make a start. This afternoon's session is about trying to tie everything up that we've been speaking about through the course of the day. So speakers have kindly agreed to be part of the panel. So Sir Craig, Irina, Stuart, Simon, Sergio and Tim have joined us again, and Basil has popped on the end of the panel, so it's grown a little bit in expertise as well as numbers. So as you can see from your program, what we're trying to do with this round table is talk about making the most of the Olympic Games for strengthening the work of NGBs. So the conversation we're trying to have is really, I guess, a fluid one. It's quite open. So what I'll do is I'll start by asking some questions to panel members. And by all means, panel members, if you wish to add to a question that I give to another panelist, please add your thoughts. At the end of that conversation, we'll open it up to the floor, and if there's any questions that you might have for the panellists around what we've discussed or something else related to that, we can pick it up from there. So, to begin, could I start with you, Sir Craig? We've talked about the key to enhancing NGB capacity and maximising the opportunities of the game. The key to this seems to lie in an integrated approach between the IOC, Olympic Games organising committees and NGB. So they need to work together, it seems, to achieve a collective outcome. With this in mind, could you perhaps explain for us what you feel are the challenges in trying to create that integrated approach, or what the challenges have been, or how you might go about doing that?
In a word, people, national federations coming into games see this as the most wonderful opportunity to, as I said this morning, to do everything of all the dream of. The International Federation is actually rather more sanguine because they've been there in different games, once every 4 years, but they may have a slightly different objective than the National Federation. And the IOC tries to make that work by saying we will deal with the organising committee. So, to have all of these people in different rooms doesn't work, so you have to pull them together. And even in the joys of London, we had a couple of national federations who clearly saw the London opportunity as a capital-raising opportunity to rebuild their facilities crudely miles away from the Olympic Park. When part of the whole bidding concept was to do it on a very compact and tight basis. And that caused a little bit of strain, it caused a little bit of media comment, which we could have done without. But at the end of the day, the only way is to get people with different views in the same room at the same time. And having listened to Professor Tim in the Paralympics, one of the reasons that the Paralympic Games were so successful in London was that they were integrated totally with the organising committee the whole way through. We never had any issues as far as that was concerned. It was one Games, and they were a little lucky in the sense that we managed to market the tickets so well that everybody in the country who couldn't get an Olympic ticket, and there were lots initially, then got Olympic tickets. So suddenly you produced full stadiums and all these wonderful athletes responded. So it works. But the answer to your question is
bringing people
partnership, and talk.
Okay, so part of that, I guess, is that given the Olympic Games is such an international movement, the context becomes important. Previously I was sitting there before mapping out where the Games have been since 2000. I think I got it right, but I'm sure there's enough people in this room to correct me if I'm wrong. But we went, I think, Sydney, Salt Lake City, Athens, Turin, Beijing, Vancouver, London, Sochi, Rio, and then Pyeongchang for the next Winter Olympic Games. So one factor that's come out of today's conversation, I guess, is this notion of context in how that integrated model might work in a certain geographical, political context, and how the geography and the politics at the time can mediate that relationship. How challenging is that, Sir Craig, in terms of trying to integrate across different geographical or political contexts?
Well, it's challenging because you're dealing in different political systems, games after games after games. The two really central players in that are the IOC, who have run the games for years, and as I said this morning, are moving away a little bit from saying this is our franchise and that's how it should be done, to having an invitation phase that you come and discuss with us how the games might be organised to best suit your city. And secondly, the international federations, because in the main, international federations have run either regional or world championships in most of the cities that end up as games organising cities. The slightly complex ones tend to be the national federations, who then perhaps have a less international view. But at the end of the day, this is why there is a games evaluation group for the IOC. It's why there is a coordination commission. It's why the staff do regular project reviews with the organising cities. We have one of our former senior executives almost permanently living in Rio to help the Brazilian organising committee. And at the end of the day, I would have to say that we make it work.
So, Irina, perhaps if I could ask you, you talked about the Sochi experience, etc. We've talked a bit about comparing London to the Russian experience in Sochi. Was it difficult in that challenges unique in terms of trying to bring different groups together from your experience, trying to bring the IOC, working with the IOC, working with your NGBs, working with your organising committees, or your organising committee? What were the challenges within Sochi?
I mean, the challenging part was, yes, working with national federations. We didn't have any challenges working with international federations. And IOC, this is a group of professionals. They run the games all the time, so they know how to deal with different cultures, how to deal with different organizing committees. So they come with, and they just have exact plan what needs to be delivered. But the national federation, that was a new project for them. They never faced anything like that. So first we had the negativity of accepting that you got the games and you run it. It has nothing to do with us. We're training our team. So that was a challenging part for us, right? And I would say the most fights we had internally in the country and with our national federations. We had no serious issues with international stakeholders which run the game.
So how did you reconcile those internal differences?
I mean, some of them never been fixed, so it's, as I said, this is still existing. So we just had to adapt to the situation and find the best good balance of the best way to. I mean, we have to survive together. We have to work together. I mean, we have to be flexible and learn how to work with each other. That's it.
All right. So if we follow that theme, I guess, around NGBs, and we continue along this notion of having an integrated approach. I think it was interesting in Basil in his presentation talked about there's 46 NGBs, I think he said, in the UK, was it? 26 in Russia, and 26 recognised, was it?
No,
100 accredited. A large number of NGBs. In a lot of ways, as well as collaborating, you're competing against each other in a very competitive marketplace. So it's quite complex because you want to grow your market share, but you also want holistically the Olympic Games to succeed, and you all want to achieve from it. So how do you work collectively while at the same time competing against each other? And I guess I'll refer to you here, Stuart. Can I ask you, in terms of how you were in your presentation, you talked about building market share.
Yeah.
Building capacity with your own group, leveraging the games. And as a powerful NGB, do you feel you have a responsibility to those not so powerful NGBs, or is your focus, when we look at the games, really just about cycling, or is it a broader sort of?
Not at all. There's a number of forums across the sport in the network, and we share a lot of intel through that network. I think we've had 14 governing bodies come to us to sort of get more depth on what I presented today. I think where it falls down a little bit is you can take a slice of that and go back to your governing body, But if your senior people in a governing body don't understand the need for a fairly transformational change, then you can only pull a part of it out. Whereas I think if you're going to do what we've suggested, you almost need to take a completely fresh view of your new customers that you want to get involved in your sport. It's about marketing development, it's about getting new people and increasing participation. So I think my advice for any governing body networking with this idea would be, you know, if you're a middle manager or a researcher or someone who's trying to change programs, is to bring an influential person from your governing body and get them to see it and believe it, and then you can bring about change. I think that's probably what's missing, I think, across the network at the moment.
So you're happy to share your, let's say, your intellectual property with your colleagues?
There's a line where you can cross here because, I'll give you an example. B were brilliant in sharing how they segment their subscription customers, and so we don't have the data of their customers, but we have their techniques, and we could not share those techniques with a non-disclosure agreement with them. So we could share the kind of the ideal and an outline methodology. We couldn't go any further than that. So there are some restrictions, but on the whole, you know, for the 46 governing bodies in Britain, it's in our general interest to work together to increase participation. As a sector, we're under pressure, and collectively, if we can do anything, you know, across any governing body to network and do things better, we should be doing it without a doubt.
So Tim, perhaps if we go to you now, I think one of the greatest challenges that the Paralympic movement has had is establishing itself in the public marketplace. You pointed to that in your presentation, because it is a very competitive marketplace. And I think of the Paralympics, it's quite amazing how far I think it's come since 2000 in Sydney.
Sydney Games.
Yeah, I think the Sydney Games was really the catalyst for the awareness of the Paralympic Games. Perhaps can you tell us what perhaps you've learned as an organisation from Sydney, from the different, over that course, from, you know, the different times at the Paralympic stages, and what have you learned from that, and what do you credit your success to from those learning experiences?
Domestically, I think the need for us to treat it as a world-class sporting event, so that might seem a bit self-evident after London, but going back to 2000, or even going back to Barcelona actually in 92, but then 2000, you know, amidst the, for want of a better word, the indifference, to still be putting everything that we believe through the governing bodies, programs, and our own organisation into supporting athletes who are seeking to win gold medals and represent their nation and be treated as world-class athletes. That was a big challenge that Sydney really brought to life. Your references, you know, as host nation, Australia did set the benchmark absolutely for a little bit what Craig referenced was the integrated approach to the delivery of the Games, but also the treatment of success in the Paralympic Games as being an important benchmark for success for the project overall. And that was lost in Athens a little bit. So
you think it went a little bit backwards?
I think it went a little bit backwards, if honest. But what was fascinating around 2008 was by then we'd won London. And so what we were learning then about how to prepare the team for a Games in a home environment was a really important staging post. By 2008, governing body programs were developing for London 2012. So, you know, as we saw in the Olympics with the uplift we had there, you know, the maintenance of standards of competition amidst the emerging, you know, threat. I mean, to be honest with you, it happened in the Olympics, but the Chinese Paralympic team went from absolutely nowhere to top of the medal table because they hosted the Games. Indeed, the Paralympic government changed its policy from not recognising disability because of the Paralympic. Sorry, did I say Chinese government? Sorry, because actually, you know, fundamental shifts like that, when you get then suddenly a nation coming into the, you know, just into the medal pool, you have to learn to be, you know, as competitive as you can be just to maintain your position. China won twice as many medals as any other nation in London, and they'll remain that dominant into Rio. So I guess what we learned was how the Games are, for us, about maintaining the ability to compete and win on the world stage. where I think we've learned from each of the games from a 2012 perspective was Sydney showed how you can make it a spectacle. Athens showed the importance of an integrated approach to putting the games on. And Beijing, for different reasons, showed the power of full stadium, because actually they weren't necessarily, if I can say this, they weren't necessarily always bought tickets, but the stadiums were full for a lot of the Paralympic Games in 2008. And so people got a sense of what it could be like to compete in front of 60, 70,000 people.
There's one thing Tim has probably diplomatically missed out, is the 96 experience in Atlanta. And it was really important that Sydney did well, because without wishing to upset any of my American friends, in 96 the Paralympic Games were a $14 million bill that the organising committee didn't want to spend money on. So the Paralympic Games were not a success in Atlanta. Sydney started the movement to make them a success, and the rest, as you've heard, is history.
I did jump from 92 to 2000.
I knew there was a reason.
And you did, Tim, speak of Sochi's success,
Yeah.
Russia's success. So perhaps, Sergei, you could share with us, why do you think the Paralympic Games were so successful in Sochi?
Yeah. I think the first of all, the Sochi is made state government, the first place. Very much money, the big money, government, and all people who work in this team have money from government. And this is my opinion.
But the people seem to embrace the games as well, didn't they? The people of Sochi seem to embrace the Paralympic Games, connect with it.
People, they look and said it was very beautiful competitions, and some words about integration. I think the Paralympic and Olympic training process is possible for integration, but not competition. Competition is different, competition in the Paralympic Games is very new for the Russian people, and in the TV and all kind of dictators. In Russia, it's not traditional to work with the handicaps in their country. It's very difficult questions and have a very long history. And Sochi is broke this tradition, and all people see that they're very interested people, and she is a part of our society.
I was fortunate enough to be in Sochi on the closing ceremony of the Paralympics, and the atmosphere and the feeling in the city was just amazing. But I think what we've seen here is that, yes, there is a need for an integrated approach, and we need to work together. I guess, Simon, my question to you would be, as academics, how do we fit into this? How do we help NGBs build capacity? What role can we play as institutions and as academics to support this? Or provide evidence to allow NGBs to continue to grow?
I think the context of all of these events is different, and different nations are trying to achieve different things through the events. So the role of the academic is to try and provide the evidence of what works and how it works, so that each time the event rotates from one location to another, you're not in effect trying to reinvent the wheel, and that there are various known strategies that work well and others which are just pie in the sky. And I think there's a level of sophistication that we probably didn't fully appreciate in 2005 when we were awarded the Games, that inspire a generation would lead to some kind of massive social osmosis effect, whereby just by putting the Games on, magically people would want to do more sport. I think we're seeing with cycling and Stuart's presentation, it is far more sophisticated than that, And I'm getting a sense from colleagues in Japan that the legacy doesn't start 4 years out, it's beginning to start 7 years out. So our role is to try and work with people trying to achieve benefits by objectively giving them some kind of sense as to what works and how they can maximise or at least optimise the opportunity rather than blow it.
So Basil, you still like it more than what they say in the Olympic movement for a long time, and one foot the academic. Can you see anything else to add to that? So you think we can do as academics?
I have to say, personally, I'm very pleased that the IOC finally, Craig, started to support social science research into the games. IOC has been supporting medical and other performance-related research for as long as we can remember, but now we can clearly see that the desire and the IOC has been very serious about supporting this research, and particularly with the advanced research program. What was really important for me was the fact that all key IOC departments were actually involved in this program. So this program was designed to address the practical needs of the IOC Olympic movement. So it's not just about research, but addressing practical issues. And I think this probably has been one of the most interesting positive developments recently. And I hope the program will grow and will produce very interesting results that will inform policy and developments on the ground.
So just to finish, as I started with you, Sir Craig, I'll finish with you for the last question. If we look to the future, and we see that you know, Olympic sports are vast, but they still wish to grow. But there's some sports or events that aren't on the program. Do you see those sports or those events, how can they actually leverage off the games or contribute to building? Is there a way that they can fit into this mix in some way, from their own perspective and helping NGBs and helping the games?
Well, just to answer that, I'm very pleased that we've actually been of some help. The IOC get requests and requests and requests every day, but if you think about something we should be doing, if the games is central to everything we should be researching in the games, so the more good academic material we'll have, the better. In terms of the what I might call recognised federations, which is quite a large group, they have one thing in common, and that is they would all like to be on the programme of the Olympic Games. The international federations of the Summer Games in London had an increase in the television money which they shared over Beijing of a modest 72%. So $550 million is there to be distributed by the international federations. Among in London it was 26 sports, in future it will be 28 sports. The attempt at the moment is to move from a sports-based programme for the Summer Games to an events-based programme, because, as I said this morning, the only way we could change the summer programme was a very crude removal of the sport. We're bringing another one in. But we hope that the events-based philosophy will help change in the programme. We await the next meeting of the Programme Commission to discuss the philosophical arguments behind that situation and how, in fact, they're going to do it. Because the logic of that wish is that if you want to bring in new events from, say, another 4 sports, and you have a limit of roughly 10,500 athletes, then some of the existing sports are going to have some events reduced. And it's probably easier than saying you're not in as a sport. It will be easier to say if you've got 10 events, then only 8 will still be there. And this has been a constant debate with international federations. Stuart mentioned it was cycling. They changed, the IOC and the UCI changed the cycling programme. Chris High's father believed that I had personally got rid of the kilometre, and it wasn't until he won 3 gold medals in the London House in Beijing that I got him to understand that maybe we were right and he was wrong. So it's a movable feast, but that's the best way to do it. There are other regional organisations. The recent European Games covered a number of non-Olympic sports. The Asian Games has many more sports than the Olympics. There's a World Games. There's a whole a range of competitive opportunities out there. And the big one, the Olympics, particularly the Summer Games, will, I think, be developed on the particular mix of events as opposed to the particular mix of sports.
Well, I'd love to see Australian rules football in there at some point. Not that I'm counting on that for a medal. Fingers crossed.
Maybe their recent efforts with the World Anti-Doping Agency hasn't been particularly helpful.
I shouldn't have gone there, should I? That's the end of my questions. But if I could just open it up to the floor, would anybody have any questions around what we've talked for any of the panelists that they might want to put to them? Yes, sure.
I guess just building upon the events, how radical do you see that kind of shift being if it was to be implemented?
I think the thinking behind Agenda 2020 was that we would be radical. That having been said, the Olympic movement doesn't have a great history of radical decisions. It tends to be, every now and again, it takes spectacularly radical decisions. The biggest one I can remember was removing the Winter Games to a different period from the Summer Games. They used to be in the same year. I mean, why the hell didn't we think about that, all these years ago? I think we tend to be a little too conservative, and it needs to be driven from the top. And there's no doubt in my mind that Thomas Bach, our new president, has a very clear idea of where he wants the Games to be. Certainly, I'm not going to say by the end of his presidency, but probably during his presidency. And I'd rather share your view that perhaps we should be a little bit more radical. Some are slightly more difficult than others. I mean, I would have thought at the moment that there's one pursuit for young people that I would have thought should have been very attractive, is skateboarding. But it doesn't seem to fit within an international federation. And I don't think it's one of the suggestions that's coming from Tokyo. So every now and again, let me make a plea to say it's not our fault.
Anything else? Okay, can I thank panel members for their contribution and ask that you also thank them.
Just to finish this day off, first and most of all, I would like to thank all speakers for their time and their very valuable insights. Thank you very much indeed. And obviously to James for chairing the session. I also would like to mention the help of three important people, Diana at the back for Was and Katrina, who were very instrumental in putting this event together. And of course, again, I would like to express the appreciative thanks of Brunel University, Vice Chancellor, and my head of department for all your contribution and participation today. Thank you very much indeed, and have a safe journey back home. Thank you.